Cormagut Ceann Comhairle. Minister, the Disability Act of 2005 provides for the assessment of health and education needs of persons with disability and provides for services to meet those needs. Section 9, subsection 5 of the Act also provides that the Executive shall cause an assessment of applicants to be commenced within 3 months of the date of receipt of the application. And the background information and supporting documentation provides that and indeed it refers to the need for service to be provided early in life to ameliorate a disability. And it goes on to set out the procedure for application for the assessment of needs. And says that the Act provides that the assessment must be started within 3 months of the application, and also provides that the HSE must complete the assessment within 3 months. And that is a legal requirement of the HSE, as I say, as set out in the Act. Unfortunately and sadly, Minister, that situation is not pertaining to South Tipperary. That legal entitlement is being breached. Children are not being seen and assessed within that 3-month period. There are huge delays in the assessment of needs for children. The service is in fact broken, and we need a solution to that immediately. And indeed, the current situation for children and for assessment of needs in South Tipperary is totally unacceptable. I've had a considerable number of parents in touch with me in relation to this, and just to give you some indication of the difficulties and the delays that are arising, I've had a parent with me whose child would have properly started an assessment on the 19th of January of this year. That parent was told recently that the assessment will not commence until April of 2019, in 2 years from today. And that is simply not good enough, Minister, as you know. The child is now over 3 years of age, will be over 5 years of age in 2 years' time. As we all know, early intervention is absolutely crucial and essential to ensure that children with disabilities are properly looked after and have proper services provided for them. And obviously, where an assessment of needs has not been completed, there are delays in provision of other services, for instance, resource teaching, special needs assistance, speech therapy, and a whole range of services that children with special needs require to ameliorate their position. And I'm asking today, Minister, asking you to urgently take steps to ensure that the situation in South Tipperary is addressed and that as a priority additional staff are made available to the service there to ensure that the legal entitlement of children to this assessment within the 3-month period is available and available urgently.
Thank you, Ceann Comhairle. I'm pleased to take the opportunity to update Deputy Healy and the House on the progress underway in developing services for children with disabilities and the current position on waiting times for assessment of need, in particular with regard to the disability services in South Tipperary. Under the Disability Act 2005, a request for an assessment of need for a child can be made. The HSE recognises that it faces significant challenges in respect of meeting the statutory timeframes which apply to the assessment of need process to which the Deputy referred. The number of applications for assessment under the Act has increased each year since the Act was introduced. More than 6,000 applications were received countrywide in 2016. However, as of December 31st, 2016, 100% of applications for South Tipperary had commenced within the statutory timeframe. At December 31st, there were a total of 42 applications overdue for completion, with 14 of these overdue by less than a month and 32 of these overdue by less than 3 months. In some individual assessments, it is more challenging to adhere to the statutory timelines. For example, where a psychology assessment is required, this may necessitate a number of visits over a prolonged time. And this would be true, for instance, regarding borderline cases on the autism spectrum. The Disability Act 2005 does make allowances for these exceptional circumstances in individual assessments as regards the timeline for completion of assessments. In South Tipperary, it is acknowledged that there is at present a deficit in psychology services, a function which is essential for the completion of the Assessment of Need report. However, recruitment is underway to fill an additional post for a senior psychology post for the early intervention team. I know this is news that you'll welcome, Deputy, and that interviews are to be held in February. The current programme for Partnership Government commits this Government to improving services and increasing supports for people with disabilities, particularly for early assessment and intervention for children with special needs. The HSE has recognised that early intervention services and services for school-aged children with disabilities need to be improved and organised more effectively. To this end, a major reconfiguration of therapy resources for children with disabilities aged up to 18 years is well underway. This involves bringing staff from different service providers together into a network team, and it's called the National Programme on Progressing Disability Services for Children and Young People aged 0 to 18 years of age. Since 2014, the rollout of the Progressing Disability Services for Children and Young People programme has entailed targeted investment of €14 million and the provision of 275 additional therapy staff to increase services for children with all disabilities.
I want to acknowledge the Minister's reply and to welcome the information that a senior psychology post for the early intervention team is to be filled, and that the interviews will take place in February. I just would ask, Minister, that every effort would be made to fill the post as quickly as possible. As we all know, it can take time to have a post filled, even after interviews and after successful interviews. It can still take some time. So I'd ask that the HSE would be advised and instructed to ensure that the post is filled without delay, and that, if at all possible, in the intervening period, that a temporary appointment would be made to address the situation, because I think we will all accept, and I know the Minister accepts, that a waiting time of 2 years is simply unacceptable for a child for an assessment, and it also obviously delays other services that should be available for children with special needs. I just want to take this opportunity also, Minister, to refer to the situation arising from the whole assessment of needs at national level, where there is a significant delay now in relation to complaints. There's over 1,000 complaints waiting to be dealt with. And I understand that there is only a single individual in the appeals office nationally without any full-time administrative support staff, and that is a situation which is now also unmanageable and which needs to be addressed urgently by the Department and indeed by the HSE. But I welcome the Minister's response in relation to South Tipperary, and hope that the job can be that post will be interviewed shortly and the job will be filled shortly. And as I say, if there is any delay, that an effort will be made to ensure that the post is filled on a temporary basis.
Thank you. Well, clearly, Deputy, I regret, and indeed the HSE regret, the difficulties in accessing the assessment of needs services for some families, and the HSE have confirmed that they are working to reduce waiting times and address the issues arising for all children and their families through a number of measures. They are pursuing the filling of vacant posts and are highlighting the need for additional disability and psychology positions. They have produced an analysis of service demand and resource requirements, and the Department will be considering this as appropriate. Other measures that they have taken in South Tipperary assessment of need waiting list is to validate the list in operation with a focus on those who are waiting the longest. They also have outsourced limited services for children to reduce waiting times. And in relation to your final point about the appeals office, I don't have information on that, Deputy, but I will certainly make inquiries and come back to you on that.
Thank you very much, Minister. We move on to the fourth and final